All right, so it's mainly going to be syllabus and hello world. Programming course, what do you want? All right, so I'll go over the syllabus. It'll take me a good half an hour. I'll demo a quick like hello worldish thing, and then you'll do lab, which is not much more than hello world. Okay. All right. So I'm going to so Al can follow me around the room. The course is 341, is open source application development. We are going to work in Python. I'm very hard not to say Pascal. I'll go back to the 80s and say Pascal. We're going to do work in Python and Flask. So this course is some server-side development. So it's not a Python. It happens to be in Python, but it's not a Python course. We're not going to focus on the language. We are going to review the language in the beginning so that you're comfortable with Python. And then we're going to start using it for web development. And for that, we're going to use Flask. At some point, I will give you a video which will say, should we use Flask or Django? And I'll ask you to summarize that, and you'll tell me I chose the wrong one. And you're probably right. Django has like all the stuff you want, but it's an all or nothing thing. So you just have to bring down all the crap that you want on day one as soon as you start the Django. Flask is going to allow us to bring down this little piece when we're doing web, bring down another piece when we're doing web with the database. So it's going to allow us to work in pieces and maybe hopefully make you understand which pieces you're using rather than just giving you all the machinery all right away. So it's probably, I'm thinking it's better pedagogically for learning, but there's another thing that everything that we're doing can be done in still Python, but Django. And in certain professional situations where you don't need the flexibility, where you do need everything, that one makes more sense. So I'm doing what makes sense in a classroom, not necessarily what makes sense out in the industry. Okay. All right. This is me. Blum. Most of my students will just refer to me as Blum, which is fine. If you want to give me a title, professor or doctor. One guy in the back calls me Doc, which confuses me because that's what people from my fraternity call me. So I'm always wondering if he's in my fraternity, which I don't know. I don't think we'd want him in. My office is 133 next to Redmond. My phone number is 1139. Don't call me. I'm happy to tell you my phone number. If you want to see if I'm in my office, then call me, because if I am in my office, I will answer. But if you want to leave any kind of a message, email is preferred. So there's my email, blum.edu. Here is my web page. I used to run my course from my web page instead of Canvas before COVID. I don't know if I may try to get back to it. I don't know. There are previous versions of this course, but the previous versions of this course were taught in PHP. So that it's not necessarily a good indicator of what we're going to do. The office is right across the hall, 123, and their extension 1130. I have to put down office hours in the beginning of the semester And the problem with putting down office hours in the beginning of the semester is I don't really know my routine. I don't know your routine. So these are mainly there to satisfy the university. When they look at my syllabus, they say, oh, he has office hours. I'm around, I think, in my mind a lot, and I'm available by Zoom. So you don't even have to stick to these days. You can ask for other days. Don't ask for anything before 9:30. I'm not good in the morning. And I'm also not good after 9. So from 9 to 9, from 9 p.m. to 9 a.m., you don't want to talk to me. And I don't want to talk to you. So we're going to bring together a web client with some server-side stuff. So first, we're going to learn Python just for a couple of weeks, just as a pure language. Then we're going to introduce Flask, and then that will bring in, start making it a web server. And so that's where the HTML, CSS, and a little bit of JavaScript will come in. And we will also throw in some database. So we will use a database to grab some data and display it on the page, update it from the page, and so on. I hope I have this right. We're in section 31, and it's 3 credits. It's Mondays and Wednesdays at 12:30 in 120. Again, I will Zoom when I have to, but not always. Okay. There's somebody in quarantine, so I'm willing to Zoom today. We started today, you know that. If you want to make any changes to your schedule, then the add drop period extends through this week. If you need any advice or help from offices, then you better get it done by Friday. But so you can do things online through Sunday. Monday is Labor Day, so now you have to meet. Can't really, most people are taking this for their major or their minor, or so it's not really, of course, you can choose to pass fail, but I just put this as one of the list of dates that other courses, you can choose 2 courses to be pass fail in your sort of lifetime at LaSalle. And there's a deadline for choosing out. These are just all the dates I found on the academic calendar. There's some honors convocation for dean's list students. They had it listed twice. I don't know if that means there's going to be 2 of them, or there's only 1 and they're confused. So at least I'm confused. So mid-semester break, 18th to 19th of October. Mid-semester grades for freshmen, sophomores, and new transfers. I hate putting in midterm grades. If I have to put in a lot of them, then I may do it for the whole class. But if I only have to do it for 1 or 2, then I'll only do it for that 1 or 2. You'll see as I talk more, then I have like a very lenient late policy, and that makes giving you a grade at some arbitrary day in the semester difficult, because you may not have everything in, or I may not have everything that you have in graded. And so it's a complicated question of like what your grade is at any one time. And so if you want to know, but I'm not hiding it from you, but if you want to know where you stand, then we should have a conversation. For me, just slap down some letter is not necessarily very meaningful. The conversation will be. So if I don't have to give you the midterm grade, then I may not. But if you want one, I won't do it officially, but I'll do it unofficially in a conversation. Okay. The last day to choose whether you're going to pass fail, convocation, mid-semester grades. Okay. Oh, here, I'm down here. Last day to withdraw. The last day to withdraw is late in the semester, November. That's if you're doing poorly and you don't want to. Sometimes in my class, again, lenient late policy, doing poorly at that time and doing poorly by the end are two different things. I give a lot of room for a big turnaround, but you have to look into your heart and say, am I really going to turn it around or not? If you're not going to turn it around, you're going to fail. We have, fingers crossed, in this pandemic, an information technology leadership event that's currently scheduled for November 11th. Closer. Thanksgiving, classes end December 10th, finals week, and then have to produce grades by December 22. Okay. There's no text. I mostly use posted examples and YouTube videos and such. And here are some websites on that. I have some site here on JSON. I love the JSON data format, so get used to it. You're going to see it a lot. Okay. What are you supposed to get out of this course? I'm supposed to do something about what open source means. As far as we're concerned, in these early days, the good thing about open source is that those things tend to be free. There are also ways that you can sort of contribute if you're a good established programmer to establish that you can contribute to these things. Another thing we're going to see, in addition to it being free, is that there are lots of libraries in Python. And so that's another part of being open source, that people make these contributions, make their code available. So we'll be using some libraries that will be taking advantage of open source. Okay. So you have to be able to install. So it's installed on these machines, it's ought to be, and then the homework is presumably to be done at home and for you to set up your environment. So there's the first homework assignment is a little more than Hello World, probably even easier than the lab one, but it is also to make sure that you set up your environment. We're working in a server-side course, so we need to know the difference between client programming and server-side programming. It will be a while before we get there. We have to review Python in general before we get to the web stuff. But this is where your code runs. Our code, our Python code anyway, is going to be run on the server and then passed down to the user who's on the client side. So the client will not see, the user, the client will not see our code. Our code will have already been executed. We're going to know our basic stuff, variables and control structures and functions. That's where we'll start, just basic Python and how to work with classes and objects and so on. Then we'll worry about some validation stuff. Is the user of your program doing acceptable things? We'll talk about sessions and cookies. We'll start to do some database stuff. There'll be some database design stuff. That there's a project at the end where you make a little database and do some interfacing with that database using Python and Flask. So we'll have to talk at some point about designing a database, and that I will sort of play by ear, that if everybody seems to know, I give a little database exercise and everybody seems to know it, then we just gracefully move on. If most of the people don't know it, then you'll just keep getting labs and homework that make you design databases until more people start to get it right. So that's part of the course. supposed to be review. Sometimes people don't know as well as this one. And then we're going to use Python and Flask to make web pages that connect to the database and do database things. Get data out, put data in, put new records in or change records, so updates and deletes and inserts and so on, all the main sort of data manipulation language features that you. Okay. I'm going to give 2 tests and a final. My test, a test may take 1 day or may take 2 days, it depends. If I give you a 1-day test, I tend to try to squeeze too much into it, and then you run out of time. If I spread it over 2 days, then the good students don't run out of time. The struggling students don't run out of time, but it's less of a rush anyway. So I'll play it by ear. Maybe the first test will be in 1 day and the other one in 2 days. Maybe I'll get them both 2 days. We'll see. I'm going to give a final. That's going to be, they're always cumulative, but the emphasis is always on the new stuff. So homework with 15%, labs with 30%, and a project. What else? Everything's supposed to be done individually. Every once in a while in the project, somebody wants to work with a partner, and then I emphasize that, well, then it's got to be a better, more elaborate project. And some people do it and some people back off. Usually things are individual. I put things are due like a week after I put it down. So I'm putting down a lab today, and normally that would make it due next Monday, but next Monday is Labor Day, so I put it on Wednesday. My due dates are just to keep you like on a nice schedule, that you don't fall too far behind, but you don't lose points until the test. So there'll be test 1 at some point will come up. I'll say, here's the material that test 1 is covering. And then that stuff must be completed by that day to be eligible for full credit. But so the due dates are about keeping a nice pace. The real sort of I might lose points is just before the test. That means in some people's brain, that means I don't have to do anything until just before the test. And those people usually don't do well, but if that's the way you're going to do it, that's the way you're going to do it. The tests are, you can use everything. Now I say open book, there's no book, open notes. Your notes are your programs. If you want to take, if you want a pad of paper and you want to take notes, that's perfectly fine, and you're allowed to bring it and use it. But when I say, what I'm really talking about here is your previous programs. So you should have your programs, know what they do, know how they work, ready to go, and then I will give you something that's similar, and maybe it'll marry part of this program and part of this program. So I want you to sort of copy from yourself, copy from me, and copy from yourself, but not copy from each other. All right, so this is that you can copy from yourself, especially during tests. And this is about not copying from sort of other people in the class. Or if you just find the program, I usually try to make up things that aren't quite what you'll find on the web, but sometimes I give some assignment that is just, you just say, I want this program, and so you Google that program and you're just looking for some help and it gives you the whole program. I'd rather you don't do that. You don't learn much from that. But if you find something, you use something on the web that was more, not just for me, you don't have to cite me. I intend for you to copy me. But if you're getting a lot of code lines from some other source, then just a comment. I don't need any official kind of citation, but just some like intention. And I got this from somewhere, and here's where I got it. And I don't have a problem with that. Again, if you find the whole damn thing, then you're not going to learn much from just copy and paste. But real programming in the real world is largely copy and paste. Let me find what's most like what I'm trying to do, and then let me tailor it to what I want it to do. So I don't expect you to write from scratch these programs. That's ludicrous. That's not the way the world works. I have plus minuses. I take attendance. I can put it in the grade. I usually don't. If part of the I'll probably sort of, this one's a little odd because I spent so much time blathering about the syllabus, but usually I'll talk for maybe 45 minutes to an hour and then give the rest of the time, probably half an hour to 45 minutes, I'll talk, and then I'll turn it over for you for lab. If you're not staying, so here's when attendance matters to me. When you're not staying for the lab time, or you are not working on things during the lab time, when you have me, captive audience, to ask questions, and then you want lots from me outside of class. I'm going to say, you need to attend, or I'm going to take some points off of you if you don't. If I give you a makeup, and if you miss a test, I may just rearrange the weights, and that's that. Or I may give you a makeup, it's my call. And if I make up a new test, I'm not going to apologize if it's a little bit fun. So you should try to make it here. If you're really sick, then stay away. But and if you're really sick, we might be able to arrange some kind of Zoom situation. Like so. Okay. The tests are always cumulative, but they focus on the new stuff. Keep everything. If every computer I own and have information on dies, I should be able to come to you and say, show me all the assignments that you turned in so I can reconstruct my gradebook. I should be able to ask you to reconstruct your line in my gradebook. A is a 94 and up. I usually round scores a little bit up, so 93 point something is an A. Probably 93.5 or whatever. And it's sort of 3 points each little partial letter grade is like 3 points. Don't be rude or distract people, and everything's good. All this pandemic stuff I have to put in my syllabus, blah, 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 wear masks. If you're in quarantine, let me know. I will try to accommodate you with Zoom and recordings. Again, I don't want to always record because then people will just decide it's an online class, which it's not. So if I know somebody needs Zoom and recording, I will accommodate. But I also want people to be free to ask questions, and they're often don't feel free to ask questions if they're being recorded. I will tend to run the class by sort of half lecture, half lab. So I will do my blah, blah, blah. I will ask if there are questions that will be on the recording. then I'll stop recording, probably keep the Zoom going, but stop recording. And then people are freer to ask questions that aren't being recorded. But again, I don't want the people who are coming and doing what they're supposed to be doing to not feel they can ask questions because they don't want to be recorded. Okay. You're supposed to take your temperatures and monitor and yada, yada. Don't cheat, don't openly allow your stuff to be copied. Every semester this happens, somebody decides to help one of their fellow students just by giving them their code. Here's my code. And then with the expectation of, you're just going to do something like it. You're just going to see how I did it, and then you're going to do it for yourself. And then that other person just turns in your work. So don't give them that. Don't just give them your stuff. If you really want to help, then explain it to them, and that's the way you help. If you're just going to turn them in your code, then you are cheating. You know, don't say, well, I didn't think they would do that. I'm telling you now, they're going to do that. They're just going to turn in what you give them. So don't give it to them, or understand that you're cheating right now from the start. I announced it, you know it. Okay. Other stuff I'm supposed to say, recording. I can, especially for people in quarantine and such, I can record. When I post, I will probably put it on YouTube. YouTube has a public format. I won't do a class recording in public format. If I pre-record something, that will be public. If I record a class, it will be unlisted. You guys will receive the URL, but the rest of the world, it's not like a searchable thing. So nobody's going to find it based on a search. They have to know the URL. Then there's another thing where you have to be specifically invited. I'm not going to go that level of security, but I will go the unlisted level of security for the class postings. For the pre-recordings, public. And there's an accommodation. Some students can have an accommodation where they are allowed to record. Otherwise, students aren't allowed to record. So unless you have a specific accommodation, say some problem with hearing or what have you, then you might be allowed to record. Otherwise, you're not allowed to record. I am allowed to record. In certain circumstances, I will record, but I'll try to respect their privacy by marking it as unlisted. There's some people who took this course in the spring, so there's possibly some tutors around for this course. In general, you should ask. Your first stop is asking for help. All right, that wasted a lot of time. Now let's write a hello world. I hope I can write a hello world on this computer here, and then you will write some more. Let's show you that. So here is homework 1, which is to set up some environment at home and show me that it's set up. So you'll run some command to show me you have Python, you give me a screen capture, and then you'll set up your Visual Studio Code environment, and you'll show me you have that. And if you don't know how to set up Visual Studio Code, just go to YouTube and say install Visual Studio Code, and there will be tons of people who want to show you how to do that. And, you know, poke around and find one you like and follow it. This is me writing a hello world, and this is just a PowerPoint. This is me with a voiceover in the PowerPoint. uploaded to YouTube. Since that's pre-recorded, it's publicly available. And then there's a lab. You type in some certain code and show me your program. I'm just going to write my own hello world here. Let's hope. I'm going to use the environment of Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio, which is a monstrously huge thing, often used for .NET programs. If you've taken C40, you've seen Visual Studio. This is Visual Studio Code. This is the same kind of philosophy that class is, that you add the pieces that you want. So it's a much more lightweight thing, and then you say, but here's what I want to do with it. So again, when you're starting, make sure you grab Visual Studio Code, not Visual Studio. So here is Visual Studio Code, and it's very, at this stage, lightweight. It doesn't know what I want to do. I have to sort of train it to what I want to do. I'm going to write a very simple hello world in Python. So I'm going to start by making a new file that file is going to hold my Python program. So it's made me an untitled -1. Probably it's a text file .txt, but it's not showing me any extensions. And I'm going to do a file save as. I want to know where this is and what it's named. I'm going to put it in documents. Maybe I'll make a 341 folder. And I'm going to call it hello.py. The .py is important for what we're doing because we are announcing, again, Visual Studio Code is very extensible. It can do many things, but you have to tell it what you're doing. So this is our first hint to Visual Studio Code that we're doing Python. So .py announces to the system, this is going to be, I intend for this to be a Python program. It gave me two little things. Do you want to install the recommended extensions for Python? And well, that's it. Then there's stuff. So that one's not useful yet. So let's do this one first. So do you want to install the Python extension? So in Visual Studio Code, the extensions are what I said it's extensible. And then to do the extending, you add the extension. So I'm just going to click this little blue button here that says install, and then I'll show you a different way as well. So click the blue. It has chosen the standard Python extension and it's installing it. And now it's installed. Okay. Opened up a tab for that, and I'm closing it. If here's where the Python, here's where the extensions are. You work with extensions in this sort of, I'll call it a pane that slides in and out. So to get it to slide out, here's where you deal with extensions over here. This little sort of 4 squares, one of them separated. And that takes away the pane and brings the extension pane back in. And if you mouse over, it gives you the tooltip of extensions. If I did not see or did not get that little box up here that told me to install the extensions, I can go another route, and that is to click on this extensions tab and then say, what kind of extensions do I want? I want Python extensions. And then here's the one I already have. Okay, this one was put out by Microsoft itself. So they always want to put theirs first. And then there are others. And some of these have different things that this one is focused on indentation. Some of them will give you coding examples. So it's not just, there's not just one Python, and it's not just one, let's say, there are things, even with this Python installed, there are other things that you might add. I tend to be pretty minimal in terms of my extensions, but if you have one that you like, feel free to use it. I usually keep it to a minimum, but I know there are people who like more, like you can get coding examples and things like that. So that can be useful. Okay. All right, and I happen to, let me do what I should have done slightly earlier, and let's just test it that this computer had Python. These computers should all have it, but let's just check. So I went down here to my search in Windows and typed CMD. CMD brings up a command prompt. And here's my command prompt. And I'm going to, in there, I'm just going to type Python, the word Python, Python, and enter it as a command. And it says some blah, blah, blah. And then it gives me this like arrow, arrow, arrow. Wait a minute. That means I've moved into sort of a Python area, Python environment, command line Python environment. So I can type now Python code. Our simplest Python code is just going to be a print statement. Print hello world, and close the quote, close the parenthesis, always close with the open, and hit enter. And so I'm now in a place where I can interpret Python. Okay, so that's, I'm in a command line. I'm not in Visual Studio Code. I'm in a command line, but my command line understands Python. If this didn't work, if it said, I have no idea what you're talking about, then there are two possibilities. One is that you don't have Python installed. So if you're doing your homework, which is about setting up your environment for at home, then you might find that you don't have Python. And you might have to go Google install Python and bring it down and install it. There's another possibility, and you also have to watch when you're installing Python, you have to watch out for this. Sometimes when you're installing, you're just clicking okay, like mad. You have to tell your computer after you've installed Python that you want your computer to know where it is. You want to add it to the path. So I'm going to get out of Python, exit with parentheses. So I'm out of Python. I'm still in the command prompt, but I'm out of Python. And I'm just going to type the word path. And that's, I'm just going to show you where Python is on these machines. So path tells you, all my IT students know I love to tell them about path. Path is where your computer is trained to look for commands. So it's a long list. All these different places on the computer are places where your computer looks to see when you type a command in the command prompt, it will say, do I know what that means? Let me go to all these places and see if one of them has that command, it will tell me what it means. And so one of these is Anaconda. And in these labs, that's where the Python's going. So Anaconda, I don't know, I think that's a snake. And Python is a snake, so it's a snake pit. What can I say? All right. So let me go PC, and what was it? Program files and Anaconda. There's lots of stuff here, but here's the Python executable. Here's the Python application. So these computers here should have Python installed, if IT did its job, and it should be part of the path, if IT did its job. So have that working, or we have to report it to IT. That's our job, is to report things to IT that they didn't get right. All right. So we have Python, and that brings us to our next thing. So we opened up Visual Studio Code. That's where we're going to work. We said we opened up a new file. We saved it with an extension .py that announced that it was Python. And then it said, you must want the Python extension. And I said, yeah. And now it's saying, select the Python interpreter. There's no interpreter chosen. Please choose one. And that's going to be that Conda Anaconda. So that's what we have to do next. You can have multiple Pythons on a computer. So this is saying I may want to connect to different Pythons for different projects. And so this one is saying, which Python do you want? Well, we only have one right now, as far as I know. And so, but we're going to connect to it. So we're going to select the interpreter. So again, I'm going to click the magic blue button, and then I'll show you how to do it if you don't click the magic blue button. But okay. So here is select the Python interpreter. That brought up this little drop-downy thing here. And there's the Anaconda thing. And that's the one. It's the one we know exists. Okay. If you didn't notice the little hint down on the side about the selecting the interpreter, then you can go to View and say, I want the command palette. That little drop-down thing at the top was the command palette. Control-Shift-P. I never tend to remember those things, but Control-Shift-P. And then there are all sorts of things you might do. We want to do something with Python. There's still a ton of things you can do with Python. So we wanted to select the interpreter. So it's much easier if you catch it the first time and you just click the blue button, but there are ways to do it. And there are other ways to do it as well. So there is some JSON file. I told you I love JSON. There's a JSON file associated with Visual Studio Code. And so what we just did, or what the computer did for us, was type a line in that JSON file and said, here's the interpreter we want. So at some stage in our life, maybe we will open up that file and make our head spin. But for now, it was automated, so that's good. All right, we did the hard work. We said that it was Python, so we added the extension, and then we selected the interpreter that happened to already be installed. At home, you may need to install Python. At home, you may need to install Visual Studio Code. So the homework may be easy for you if you have a lot of things already. It may be hard for you if you need to do the installs. So you have a week plus, because the next week is Labor Day, a week and 2 days to do it. Start working on it, ask questions. I can help if you need help. We can Zoom, you can share your screen, all sorts of things. Now, just a simple print hello world, and I'm going to save it. This little one here is telling me I haven't saved the file, so I'm going to save it. So you can do file save or Control S. And then I'm going to finally run the program. I'm going to click this little green arrow. It's telling me it's going to run Python in the terminal. There is no terminal showing right now. It's going to open a terminal at the bottom of Visual Studio Code and run my program in it. Okay. So here were some, it started off in my default, it put me in my default directory, and it ran some commands for me. So here's the command telling me where Python is, and then it's telling me to run my Python program, and then there finally is the result. So we could have done this all at command line, but that's tedious. That's what the environment Visual Studio Code is for helping, running some commands, simple commands for us. All right, what are you supposed to do? Not much more than that, except more typing. So you're doing the homework's supposed to be done at home, so you're setting up your own environment. Okay. Here's the lab. So set up your environment and then just sort of retype in this program. So it uses some random stuff. I have like, I have a list of words. I shuffle those words, which puts them in a random order. That's why I need random. Shuffle uses random. I'm printing out to the console or the terminal, and I'm looping through my words. I'm grabbing I'll call it the ith word. I'm looping through the words. I'm grabbing one of the words, and then I am turning it. So that's word. Word is one of my words. List turns it into a set of letters. I'm shuffling up those letters. So I grabbed, I don't know, finger. And now down here, I've taken the letters from finger and put them in a random order. And here I'm joining them. I'm putting them back together. And then I'm printing that out. So now the letters from finger will be put in a random order. And then I ask the user to enter their guess, and I bring it in as the variable guess. And then I ask if the word and guess are the same. And I'm not doing anything very careful about, did they have spaces? Did they have capital letters? They have to type the right thing or forget them. We're not doing anything fancy, just this quick program. You show me a screen capture of your program and you running it. You choose some different words. And in the running of the program, get at least one right, get at least one wrong. That's the lab. Normally do in a week, but it's Labor Day, so Wednesday. You don't have to wait till Wednesday. If it's done, submit it. Eventually, you'll start sending me code, which I will run. But for now, you are just sending me screen captures. What else? When you start sending me code, you should probably zip it up. I don't know what our email system would do with a Python. What's that? That may be. I'm not sure, but for some reason it doesn't like XML. it goes like nuts on XML, which is usually just a data file. So why it goes nuts on the data file, I don't know what it does. All right, I'm going to finally shut up and let you work. Any questions while I'm still recording? I'm going to stop recording.